I crashed at a friend's house for about 6 months, then got my own spot, and I posted up there for I stayed in Atlanta for 8 years, which was probably about 2 years too long.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Elation podcast today, where we enjoy exhilarating euphoria through creation and collaboration. Today, we're here with Lou Hill. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you again.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good to have you back.
Good to be in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into all kinds of stuff, but let's just start with the origin story, where you're from, and we can go from there.
I like that origin story.
Yeah.
Born and raised here in New Orleans. 7 ward, 9 ward kid, came up through the system, of just enjoying the streets and running around being a kid in New Orleans. So all of those things.
It's different. New Orleans is different.
It's very different
than a lot of cities.
Yeah, it's very different. And it's very different from when I grew up too. But yeah, it's a different place. Went through all the New Orleans musical journeys, everything from, the Tambourine and Fan and Huntersville on St. Bernard, Mardi Gras Indians vibe, went on to study drumming through high school, got a talent scholarship to Xavier, majored in music there. Did 2.5 years. Then was like, man, I can do this full time. And took a bunch of gigs for 2 years. Then was like, need a degree. Went back to school, finished up my music degree. Headed out to DC because I was kind of annoyed with the New Orleans music scene. They don't understand what I'm doing. And so, right?
What did DC bring?
DC was a vibe where it's close to Philly, close to New York.
Okay.
And it was I don't think I can roll straight to New York, but I had some friends in D.C., so I'm I'm going to crash in D.C. D.C. is 4 hours away from New York, 2 hours from Philly. You can go to D.C., the same night and come back home, go to work in the morning. But did that for 3.5 years. Double back here, moved back home as most New Orleanians do.
Yes.
And
you never leave home.
Never ever, right?
Yeah. But you leave it and you appreciate it.
You appreciate it way a lot more, a lot more.
Yeah.
But pulled in DC, pulled in my second record contract because I did get a record contract when I was 21. From, ironically enough, a guy named Milton Baptiste, who's the founder of Olympia Brass Band, and he loved what we were doing.
Okay.
Gave us a record deal. Double back home just in time to catch Katrina, which sent me to Atlanta for 8 years.
God.
Yep, lost just about everything.
Bad timing, huh?
Yep. It was crazy. Lost. House got 30 feet of water, and it was pretty crazy.
You weren't in a FEMA trailer, were you, in Atlanta?
I wasn't. I crashed at a friend's house for about 6 months, then got my own spot, and I posted up there for I stayed in Atlanta for 8 years, which was probably about 2 years too long.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'll say this, and maybe this is jumping the gun, but New Orleans was, I learned a lot about music in New Orleans, and it was great. I just felt that I wasn't going to be heard here in New Orleans. And so I always say if DC was my college education of the music business, Atlanta was the master's program.
Oh, yeah.
So,
big time.
Yeah, I went to Atlanta, and when I figured that, won't be going home for a while, I just immediately started hitting up every record label and met some cool people. Worked on a lot of cool projects, did a bunch of stuff, got to tour Russia, toured up and down Watersea, did a lot of touring around that time. Then moved back home, man, moved back home. And I've been back here for, I think, 12 years or so. And so, doing a thing with the band.
Yeah, man. Well, New Orleans never leaves you. And I'm born and raised here, but I left when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom got divorced, and I went with her. We went to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for a while, but then, then I got the itch to come home, and I came home for a little bit, and then I did the college thing, and I left for a little bit, and then I wanted to come home, so I moved back home for a little bit,
right.
And then some big events in my family happened, and a couple people died and things, and and New Orleans wasn't going to be the same for me after that. So I just like, you know what? I'm going to go to LA and actually put myself through music school.
Right.
Like, let me figure out what the industry really is, because it's not here. So I moved away to LA and was there 9 years and learned the industry. But my number one goal was to come home and build something. Like, you know, so like New Orleans never leaves you. It's crazy.
It doesn't.
It's crazy. And I really think you really appreciate what New Orleans is once you go and see other big cities.
Right. No, it's definitely, and I vibe with what you're saying about, because, you know, when you go to other cities, the per capita, the amount of talent that you find in New Orleans, I mean, there's no other place I've ever lived where it's just like the talent is ridiculous. Like, why isn't it that, you know, you have...
why can't I call a label building?
Right.
Why can't I call a music marketing company?
Yeah.
Why can't I call a publicist?
A booking agency.
Why can't I call an A&R?
Yeah.
Why there's so many whys in the city, and that was the number one thing I learned being away. When I'd come back and visit family and stuff, and I'd realize that we've been forgotten about since Katrina.
Well, one of the first things I learned was, and I think it was before Katrina, one of the first things I learned, the first guy second or third guy, to be honest, that called me in, but he became a long time friend. He called me in and he liked some of the demos, and he was figuring out, okay, we can put you here, 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 and here. And it's like, what about going back to New Orleans? He just looked at me and said, man, you know, New Orleans isn't a buyer's market. It's like, no disrespect, but when we talk about planning tours and putting things together for our artists, we'll double back to New Orleans, but that's not where we intend to go. And, you know, it hurt my heart, but still to this day, I still feel like it's in that kind of position. It's like you add New Orleans to the tour after the other dates.
After the initial dates.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and that's where there's a few people who have enough draw that can say, I'm doing New Orleans. But for the most part, you know, it takes us a while to get your...
We're an afterthought.
Yeah, your super, like your stars that are blowing up right now, they may or may not come to New Orleans, you know. You may have to go somewhere else. So it is what it is. I mean, I have a whole lot of theories around it. Yeah, I think the heart of it is that most New Orleanians, they go and learn this about music. Like, why can't we have it here? That's what everybody's saying. Why can't we have it here? You know, why can't we?
We don't even have our own Grammy chapter.
I know. We don't have our own Grammy chapter.
I cannot explain that.
Maybe that's a numbers game. Maybe they just needed to compile everybody together.
But you put us in Memphis.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, yeah, I get Memphis and blues and all that stuff, but like, weren't we first?
I think the thing is like us, Memphis, Tennessee, is a few states, and I think their theory was like, we can compile these, and that way they can fight in Atlanta that has a populace of 6 million people, in LA, which who knows how many in New York. So maybe that's the concept. I don't know. I think it's weird that we aren't thought of as real contenders in the overall music
but that's
business.
A part of the music business culture that doesn't adapt to us. Like we don't participate in that part. They want our creativity.
But is it us not adapting? Is it them not adapting to us, or us not adapting to them?
I think it's both. Mm-hmm. I think it's both because one of the things that I learned building the studio here is when I bring in people from out of state that are session musicians from Nashville or other places, mm-hmm. Their response to me is because the musicians and the people here that do the studio sessions haven't adapted an actual corporate work situation, and they don't look at it as a job. They look at it as a creative situation. So they might show up drunk to the session. Mm-hmm. They might not show up at all. They might show up late. And those little intricate issues will mess with an overall culture of building the business.
Well, yeah, I agree. And I think to add to that, I don't think New Orleanians, and this is for generations, it's almost that we are training people to be great performing artists, great live musicians, and that's important. But this is a city where people go and they make an album in a week, whereas the competition is saying, it takes me a week to get this song right.
Right.
And then we go to a mix down session. We mix down a whole album in 2 days.
Right.
And then we want that to compete with somebody who like an Anderson .Paak that finished this album and Dre took 2 months later to finish like mastering, mixing, producing it to a level that won him a Grammy.
Right.
So I think there's a huge disconnect, and I think there's a difference. There's a different mentality, and I say this all the time. There's a different mentality between a gigging musician and a recording artist.
100%.
And I think here in the city, unfortunately, we confuse the two. We confuse the two and say, I'm a great musician. You're playing every night of the week. Well, but I want to be a big star. Well, especially in today's situation, nobody's going to come in. Maybe in the 90s, early 2000s, somebody comes see you perform and say, I want you to be a star. Nowadays, that doesn't happen, you know? And so you have to record great stuff and then focus, invest, promote, put your money where your mouth is, that this is a great song. I'm going to do the things necessary to make it a great song.
But
we don't do that.
The artist has become the label.
The artist has, but in that, let's be honest, how many recording artists do you know in New Orleans that are actually like, I'm not only going to record, I'm going to write a hit song, and then if I believe I have a hit song, I'm going to invest my time, money, energy, and effort into doing it. There's a few that I can name. But the vast majority, that's maybe 5, and I'll be gracious, 10% of the working music community.
No, 100%.
And so you go to a Nashville, you go to an Atlanta, you go to a LA, it's somewhat the opposite. In my time in Atlanta, the gigging musicians who were just doing gigs at JR Crickets and stuff, they didn't even mingle and mix with the recording artists.
Right.
The recording, they would make, those people would get the call if you went on tour and you needed a good drummer.
Right.
And they write a check to you. But they were never considered the stars.
Right.
And here in New Orleans, it's kind of like a little bit of, we haven't figured out like, hey, this path is different from this path. No one's greater than the other one, but don't tell me you're playing 5 nights a week at this hole in a wall, but you want to, sell albums and win and do that.
But it's also a different mindset too. The gigging drummer and the session drummer is a different mindset.
Very much so.
So to give you an example, and I know you know this, but I'm just saying this for the camera. But one of the first guys that I started a production team with in Florida graduated from jazz percussion. Mm-hmm. One of the best drummers I've ever met in my life. Would be the best guy on tour for you to ever have to hit. But you ask him in a studio session to come up with a fill and be creative. Mm-hmm. Where am I going? He doesn't know where to go.
Right.
And guitar players the same way. They're guitar players that create those solos, mm-hmm. but they go on stage and they necessarily can't play the same way that someone that can play every note perfectly but can't come up with a solo.
Right.
So it's a whole different
It is a different mindset. I think some people can walk both lines.
Yes,
you're
of
right.
course.
But you're right. It is, and to your point, 100% that's what the difference is. And what I'm saying in New Orleans is it's all a blurred line.
It's all a blurred line.
So what's happening is you're asking the rest of the world to find the recording artists in New Orleans. But the problem is you got this big blurry line and they have to invest time, money, energy, and effort to figure out, okay, this person has the right pedigree, the right discipline, the right drive to do it. Well, I got to spend time and money to figure that out, I'm not pro major record label, but I'm just thinking.
But there's artist development and A&Rs and things that have to be around for that culture to create itself and someone leading that part of the process. And we just don't have anybody doing that.
No, I don't think we have anybody. And I guess I was telling some of your interns earlier, I guess you got to know, your identity. It's like, what do you want to do? If you, a teacher when I was in college, he was like, man, if you just want to be a drummer, he's like, quit. He's like, don't come to school. He's like, if you just want to be a drummer, quit. He's like, go get as many lessons as you can, get as many, gigs as you can, learn as many styles, and you'll be a great drummer.
Right.
If you want to do something that's different, be a writer, be a composer, as well as be a drummer and really understand all the areas of music, then you need to be here.
Right.
And so I've always taken that to heart. It's like, oh, there is a difference, and I think that for whatever reason, there's this weird bitterness in the city amongst musicians, and people's like, this person has this, but I'm better. And it's like, dude, like, every number one, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves in better, worse, good, bad, and that kind of way. But beyond that, it's like, but that person sacrificed something that you may not have, and you're sacrificing stuff that they may not have. But I think when we start comparing, it starts getting a little weird. But I do think that New Orleans is kind of, it's like, which way are we going?
Right.
And really, what are we fighting for? Because what's at the end of the rainbow?
Right.
What's the point of, what's your goal in, I don't know, selling out a venue? What does that do? What does that mean? Is it just that payday?
Right.
But then what do you do after that?
Right.
Like, what's the plan? Because nobody's coming to save you.
Right. No, 100%.
And that's what the point, especially now.
But I think it's up to guys like I'm a producer, which I took very long time calling before I called myself a producer, because back to the verbiage and the battle of talent in the music space. I was very careful to call myself a producer until I felt like I actually was established as a producer. I used to call myself a beat maker, but as a producer, we have to have someone to start that process for our musicians. We have to have a culture that they feel comfortable in doing that extra step, doing that extra stuff, and breaking out into certain things. Because I feel like you can get caught up into playing every show on Bourbon Street. You can play 5 times a night if you're a good musician, because there's so many live shows. But you're only making so much money doing that. But how much time do you have extra to do anything else? Because you're playing every night. So like, I feel like there's a balancing act to the business that just doesn't. There's nothing supportive in that world down here, and since, I mean, we had 2 of the biggest labels in the world come out of this place, between No Limit, Cash Money, and a bunch of other stuff, but Cash Money doesn't have a building here, No Limit doesn't have a building here, and so there has to be someone cultivating that and pushing the industry that way to almost create a union for that type of musician, to where we can all truly make money in this industry down here. Because otherwise, it's the same thing as you said. To be heard, I got to get out of this place, right?
Yeah, and I'm not the originator of that.
No,
and
look,
I don't want to be doom and gloom. I'm actually a super positive person, but I'm a realist too. And I guess I would say to your statement, and I agree with it all, is what's the end game? How are you going to make money? Like, what is the goal? And I think by being realistic, let's say you have 1 million. I have worked with artists. You have 1 million streams. You have 2 million streams. You're here. You're based in a city. How is that generating revenue? What's the next steps?
Right.
Because the streams aren't going to do it.
Right.
Is your fan base here? Where do you go? How do you get a tour together? Because you could have 2 million streams a month, but still the venue's like, I'm not going to guarantee money. So then you have to find capital to hit the road. You got to figure out all of these different methods. So I think we do need an incubator. We do need places where people are getting together, and creatives, and we put it together. But I think what's super important is that we have a target at the end of the map.
Right.
Like, this is our goal. And we have benchmarks along the way to say, okay, we got here, we accomplished this, and this. We accomplished this. And I think more than people leading, because people like yourself and other people, I can think of several people who have, taken this challenge on. And I'm not going to say died, but it still hasn't, it's moving the needle, But what I haven't heard is like anybody like, what is our goal?
Well, I would not to cut you off, but I feel like our goal, and I hate to say this as much as I'm going to say it because being from New Orleans, but we should model Nashville. We really should be, because modeling the way Nashville session musicians run the business in Nashville, because number one, they all make money. That you know, if you're a working session musician in Nashville, you're making money, but they treat it like a job. It's a 9 to 5 job. After 5 p.m., like most studios are not open after 8 p.m. in Nashville. It's a 9 to 5 job, and we have, if my numbers are, if I remember correctly, we are the second largest state of employed musicians.
Okay.
Nashville's number one. So if we are already having that many musicians employed into making music and doing live shows, we should transform that into also doing session work and being that process. So my thought and my goal was to figure out a way to blend what Nashville's doing and what we already have, which is musicians and tons of creatives, and make that session work, make that business clash. That's really the goal.
I guess what I would say to that is, and not to debate or anything, but to question. I'm trying to figure it out. You know,
because that's part of the process. We have to talk.
So the question I have is, the thing about Nashville, everybody knows they make money from country music, mostly. I mean, there's a lot of other sounds that come out of Nashville, but country music is one of the only art forms that's actually still generating capital via, recording quality, product.
Right.
But my question would be, because I know cats who do sessions here, but my question would be, is like, what artists is hiring musicians to do it? And I guess that's what I mean by end game. Is like, that makes sense, but, are you recording? What style of music? Who are you recording? Well, who's paying the bill?
That's always been a part of the process too. Like the Beatles like to record in their certain spots, and there's always a little bit of the genre issues back and forth there as well.
But I guess in a larger thing, it's just, it would have to be a major label artist that would come in and finance. It would have to be several major label artists if we're talking about creating an ecosystem that would pay session musicians. And so it becomes like, and that's why I'm like,
if we had a label building here, it would be easier to do.
Facts.
Right?
You would definitely, it would be easier to do. But then on the flip side of it, are we really building for the future? Because as we get further and further down the line, the genres of music outside of country, but including country, are moving away from live musicians. So you get into a weird kind of situation.
So I'm going to push back on that. Okay? Because yes, hip hop, EDM, pop, getting away from live musicians. Okay? But the only way we're going to ever separate ourselves from AI is live music.
I agree.
The only way to continue being original is live music. So I have this is just my own personal feeling. Music has cycles. It has cycles and runs. Country has been on a run for a while now. I feel like, but what country does is it invigorates the live musician always, every time, because country's live music. So, but after people are tired of country, they want something with energy. So now rock's getting ready to come on his next wave. That's all live music. Then there's going to be another live music genre that takes over. Those 10-year cycles happen every time. And I almost feel like AI is going to push us further into the live music because we're going to want that separation.
No disagreement there. I guess from a bigger scope of it is, again, I guess what I'm saying is, I think that a sliver of what Nashville does is functioning here in the city. And
but we need more studios. We need more accessibility.
I think you need something more than that. I think you need artists. And it goes back to, again, I was talking to some interns. If you have successful artists, they will then hire. But what New Orleans does not do, and this is what Atlanta did very well, and this is what I loved about it. Atlanta, the gatekeepers or power players who were managing those artists, they had the relationships with the labels. They didn't have all their artists signed to it, but they knew this. They knew the sauce.
Right.
So what they would say is like, okay, you have 4 artists, I have 4 artists, they have 4 artists, and 5 people at a table. And they say, okay, which one of your artists are coming out this year? I have da 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 da. And so what they would do is they would strategically play and say, okay, I'm not going to compete with your music, so I'm going to release here, and then my whole camp, all of us are going to support your artist. And then, okay, your stuff is going to release, we're all going to support this artist.
Right.
And they traded it off so that what they were doing is they were actually creating, by the time the label took notice of them, the whole community was supporting that artist. So everybody supported.
They created a culture.
Everything from features to everything. They created something that generated breakout artists that then allows them to say, okay, this person now they got the bag now.
Right.
Now they're going to feed the community because they're going to hire these musicians.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying it doesn't work unless the community is supporting
builds a culture. Yeah.
Artists, songwriters, recording artists. Unless they support that, the model doesn't work, you know? And that's what is, that's why people go other places, to do other things. So that's my biggest feel on where we are, wow. Blue Hill, I just think that outside of Cash Money and No Limit, there are a few people who have gotten outside of the city, but every artist I can think of that, and I challenge people with this all the time. I'm like, think of an artist from New Orleans that broke in New Orleans, that became famous because of New Orleans. And it hasn't happened, I would dare to say, since the Neville Meters era. And that was what, 60s?
Right.
You're talking about 60 years ago now. Right. So, but who, and I'm probably missing somebody.
Well, I mean, you got Harry Connick Jr. and you got,
Harry's definitely one.
I mean, you've got a few that have popped off.
But that's one in 60 years.
Yeah, no, you're right. Listen, but that's part of the problem that I have, because No Limit, if that would be different, if Cash Money would have their building on Canal Street.
Well, I want to pull them off. I want to pull them out of the spectrum. Maybe that's unfair, because I think that they created something that was outside of the industry.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They created it outside. Not taking any credit from what No Limit and Cash Money did, but what they did was, like, they flipped the whole game and really used the labels as banks.
Right.
They flipped the whole game on it, which was ingenious. But I'm talking about bona fide, I don't have no money, I'm talented, I'm blah, 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 blah. What was the last artist that New Orleans broke?
You got to get the hell out of the city to do that.
But then we lose.
Right.
And so I just think there's things that could be done on the ground. And for whatever reason, we're consistently crabs in a barrel, pulling each other down, not really supporting each other. And look, I can't say that totally, because I have a lot of great relationships with a lot of people that, we help each other a lot. We help each other a whole lot. But at the same time, there's a block, there's something happening. And I'm going to be honest, I don't feel like it's per se my fight. I feel like I'm doing it, I'm helping, I'm where I can, but it's almost like I would have to sacrifice all of my hopes and dreams to change a culture that, quite honestly, I have been like running into it for years. Like, oh my God, what are you like, here we go. I'm going to try to give you as much creative, innovative things as I can and push the boundaries and do all this stuff. And you still won't get the same support. And it's cool. I understand it. I just can't. I don't think it's good artistry. And I'm gonna speak purely from not business. Only the artistic side of my brain is that it's not good art to simply duplicate what other people have done.
No, I agree.
I think that as New Orleans, I feel like the founders of the genre of music we call New Orleans, I feel like those founders, and some of them are still alive, don't want us playing exactly what they did. They want us to take what they gave us and put it through our own filter and make it amazing. And I'm not certain that that concept is supported here.
Well, we've also always been a pirate city, which has pushed back against any corporate system that we could possibly imagine.
Correct.
So there's also that part of it.
There is that massive part.
But I think we're one major label building away from truly incubating what we have, and
I got you.
You know, we're gonna stay positive on that, and hopefully we just push through it. Man.
I mean, I hope the conversation hasn't felt negative.
It's not a negative thing. Listen, the pushback
Yeah.
is the reason why we have to have these conversations, because we have to push through that wall.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to figure out where it actually lands and what we can fix. You know.
Yeah.
So, but tell me a little bit about Waterseed, man. Let's get back into to Waterseed itself.
Oh, wow. All right. No, and I'm happy we're doing it. It's like, now I got to clean it up because water seeds are positivity. Look, and I'll just close out that segment for me and just say, you know, it's a reality for, I think, most artists and most creatives on the ground. And I'm just trying to give a voice to what I hear from other people about what they struggle with in the feeling, from rock artists to rap artists. Just not being heard in New Orleans. And so, and it is an issue, it's a problem. And I hope that we can find a solution, but we can't do that by ignoring that it exists.
100%.
Now, to Waterseed. Yeah, man, Waterseed's been around for a while. Fortunate enough a few years ago to get 2 Billboard charting albums. So really well worked our behinds off on that. 250 plus days a year on the road was crazy. And so now, but that helped us chart those albums because we're on the road. Ironically enough, we're selling CDs while we're on the road. And nobody was listening to the CDs because nobody listens to CDs anymore. But it was like that memorabilia. People wanted us to sign it so they would buy it and support the band. So it's very good. And we're now in I like to say we're in a rebranding phase where I think we found our vibe of what we've been doing. If you know anything about the band, we call our genre of music future funk. And the band goes by the subtitle of Future Funk Stars. And that's not like, oh, there'll be funk stars in the future. It's actually like a title that we use that comes with like this whole mythology behind it and everything. So where are we now? We got to a few years ago during COVID. I was hanging out. Just before COVID, we were on this long trip to California. Used to fly most of the band out to California for a tour, and myself and another band member would drive the gear out to California because it was cost effective, you know. So if anybody's ever driven the western part of Texas, is
long and flat.
It's long, flat, and there's nobody's out there. You're like, do these places even exist in America? Yes, they do.
And I did it multiple times, and it was multiple times where I thought, did I take the wrong left turn?
Hey man, it is. It's like there are, but you know, you realize how big the country is. It's a big ass country.
100%.
So, but it felt like a wasteland. So I was like, man, there's no way, and I was saying, there's no way a singer would survive the apocalypse, is what I thought. It's like, there's no way. You know, singers would never survive the this is too crazy as we drive through this wasteland. So I wrote this comic book on that drive called Sounds of the Wasteland. And the concept was, is the apocalypse has happened, and the only people on planet Earth are angels, demons, and musicians. And that's it. So I wrote this comic book. Didn't have time to do anything with it because we were touring a lot. COVID happened. I had some downtime. I found the illustrator. We released this book. It did really well, you know, and it still does really well. And that brought in interest from a tech company. And I'm going to say tech is very important. You know, and they were like, what do you want to do? We want to partner with you. I said I wanted to bring my comic book to life, which then started us on this 2.5 now year journey of creating an immersive concert called Journey to Funk Star. And that is where we are. And the thing that really made us double down on it when we did the comic book release at the Rabbit Hole, we did that. And we had video games, we had VR, NFTs, all of that stuff when NFTs were hot, right?
Right.
But a lot of people came and they felt like man, we wouldn't have come out to a club normally. We're kind of nerdy and geeky, but this is like a safe space for us, And I was like, man, I get it. And so we doubled down on it, and we've worked hard on expanding a safe space for people who are love music, who love video games, love comic books, who need, like, they want to dance and be entertained. They come in cosplay. Like, people always come dressed up in cosplay to our immersive shows, and we just doubled down on it. It's been 2 years now. We've done 3 shows of it. It's been growing. People are starting to book that particular show. And what's really important to us is that we've now have something tangible that people purchase again. So people, like, our number one sellers are first T-shirts and then comic books. They buy our comic book. And when I got into this business, I remember we could go on tour and be like, just pay for a hotel and we'll be fine. And we would make all of our money off just CD sales,
right.
Like thousands of dollars a night. And so now we have something that's tangible. And so that's what I mean, I guess, when I was saying about end game. How are you going to generate capital?
Well, so having a physical product is the end game no matter what, because they took that away from music.
Correct.
And music became the marketing tool. So, having that, I've always said that, like, I don't understand why artists don't, major artists don't, let's say, partner with a Budweiser, and the album is only sold through a QR code on the inside of a 12-pack of Budweiser, and you participate in the rev sales, and everybody promote and cross promote, and then you've got a physical product with your music again.
Yeah.
And some stuff, we have to get back to that moment.
Well, that's what I meant about Endgame. Jay-Z did it a few years ago many years ago with Samsung, where you could get his new album when you get the phone or something. He made his money and then he released the album.
Right.
So that's what I mean about Endgame. What is the way that is going to make people quit their job? Have to quit their job because they're making money. They have to dedicate time to it now. And I think the model of music has to be rewritten. One of your people asked me earlier, like, hey, you like touring? And I was like, oh, I kind of love it, but I hate it. But
you have to do it to make money.
Well, the way we're working on transitioning that, opposed to being in 250 days a year on the road, up and down, and then you play maybe 50 of the shows or in big cities that you like, all the rest of these little small towns, and because you're on the road, you just need to do something.
Right.
It's like we really looked at the model of, like, we have an immersive show that we're developing, and we can play LA 3 nights, 6 shows, not 6 shows, maybe 5 shows, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and make 50 times what we would make being on the road, and then go home.
Right.
And so that's a new model. That's a model that's like, oh, I'm just going to come to the city, fly in, we're going to post up in a hotel, we're going to be comfortable, we're going to play these shows, because in an immersive show, that's an experience. We're going to do the thing, and then we're going to roll out, and that's how we're going to do it. So we're very much so in the process of, like, end game. Like,
gotcha.
How do you create something that still gives your fans what they want, but also creates it so that, your guys aren't coming home to, like, man, I haven't been able to pay rent in a month, that, because it's real. It's
100%.
real. And, if we're being honest about it, touring, the venues aren't even there anymore. Like, the first thing that happened with the venues after COVID was, like, all of your mid-level venues no longer were booking mid-level artists. They were booking major artists, because the major artists had to bump down because everything was screwed. You couldn't fill big venues. All of them had to bump down. So what did that do to the small indie artists? That put them in 50-seaters, which meant the door and bar. And so all of this massive shift happened. And you talk to club owners, like, man, we're still trying to recover. So what do? You wait for them to recover and sit at home?
Now everything's turned upside down, because now all your major artists are charging more for the little shows.
Correct. And we're still
everything doubled. And
we're still living in that
world.
And so as an independent artist, end game, there is a path forward, but you got to be super creative. So when we talk about AI and stuff, AI is not going to stop. It's going to keep doing it. But you have to be super creative. You got to be smart, and you have to be open to stretching past just the music.
Right.
Because again, we're making deals right now that are better than deals that we had when we were out here charting albums.
Right.
And people, my friends or people or associates look at me like, Lou, you guys aren't very busy. Are you still together? You work? It's like, dude, you have no idea.
You have no idea how busy we are and how much more money we're making right now. Yeah,
and it's because you took a chance. And look, it's scary because it's unpath. It's not I don't have a map, we figure it out as we go, but
you're building a brand.
Exactly.
And how important is a brand?
Super. That's all there is in music right now.
Right.
It's a brand.
It's a brand.
People, because you can get the music for free, but what's going to keep people coming back is the brand.
Yeah. Well, I almost think that if you have a good brand and good connections, you don't necessarily have to have the best music in the world.
Definitely. I hate to agree with that, but
it's part of life. Right?
It is.
What did they used to say? It's 90% business, 10% creativity.
Yeah.
And because I know some artists that should not have a shot, and somehow they do. And then I know artists that should have had 50 shots, and they have none.
And this is what I get. I don't get upset about this, but this is what I find super fascinating, is if we know that's the fact, and you're an artist, why wouldn't you put that variable into what you're doing? Why be contrary to this? Why say this artist can't sing, can't move, can't dance, but they're super popular. I don't like this person, and I won't take any of what they're doing and incorporate into me.
Right.
It's like, no, well, it's obvious this is resonating with somebody.
But that goes back to what we were talking about. That's the pushback to corporate America that real creatives have, which is why we all have to have a manager or somebody that is separate from the actual creativity, because it's hard to jump in and out of those brains, those different sides of the brain.
Yeah.
And a lot of what creatives do to be original is push back against all that shit.
And I'm with the pushback. But
I don't. I agree with you.
Yeah.
They need to incorporate that, but that's also a little bit of a learning curve too. I don't believe a lot of the artists down here know that they have to implement that.
Look, I was that artist for the longest. Look, in Hurricane Katrina, I wrote this unofficial. I'm going to bring this guy up, this unofficial biography on Prince. It was called Purple Rain, but it was spelled like, Prince, King Rain.
Gotcha.
But I read it, but they interviewed all these people around him. And I was just like, oh, Prince is just a super creative. He doesn't care what people think. That's what I was like. Okay, he doesn't care what But as I read this book, he intentionally was able to say, I'm a super creative, but he intentionally said, this is going to be a hit song. This is going to be a hit song. The rest of these songs are going to be for my super fans. He knew when to turn it on and say, I'm going to make this a pop album. I'm going to make this a fan album.
Right.
So, and then you read books on Michael, you read books on Quincy, you read books on, and the superstars got it.
Yeah,
100%. And people didn't realize, they understand.
You mean the power of 4 chords?
Right. Correct.
Right.
Correct. It's like, it's just 4 chords. It's like, but those 4 chords are winning chords.
Right.
And I think we have to, we're brought up, and I'll speak in terms of noise, we're brought up to be like, nah, man, you got to do something that's super creative, super blah, blah, blah. And I get it, because that's me all day. But I was just talking to somebody last night, and I was just like, man, let's look at the song Single Ladies. It's like, Beyonce's not wailing on that song.
No.
It's very simple. And it's a hit song. And I tell people all the time, if a 14-year-old can't believe that they can sing that song at the top of their lungs and be right, it's probably not a hit song.
Right.
But if you're running all of these melismas and everything up and down the scale and do all that, nobody can even sing the song.
No.
It's like, so write a hit song. And it's okay if you say you don't care about hit music. That's cool. But don't say you want to be a superstar and you
can't write hit songs, right? Because you have to dumb it down for the public, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
Just got to make it catchy.
Most of the public are not mathematicians.
Correct.
Okay? Music is math.
Correct.
So you have to put it to them in 1 + 1 = 2. But if you put it to them in an algorithm that they can't hear it or understand it or why you went there, it's going to complicate their own thought process.
Yeah, right.
So they can't follow along, they can't dance, they can't do all kinds of things. It goes back to the session stuff we were talking about. The jazz percussion guy could play the most complicated sets you could imagine. Mm-hmm. But you get him to do a solo that people need to follow along to on a pop song.
Yeah, they want to do air guitar. He couldn't do it.
No. Yeah. So, it's just, there is a simplified mindset to creating hits.
Hey, look, and I'm here for it. And look, I listen to a lot of I call it pretentious music or super creative music where, you're just like, oh yeah, man, I hear what's happening, blah, substitute, okay, blah, blah, blah. Or is this, you're in it. But that's cool, but don't compare that to this success. Mm-mm. There's this success over here where people love that, they want that, they fiend for it, but don't look at the other person. Number one, don't look at them and dog them, and don't compare their success to yours because it's just different.
It's just different.
It's not better or worse, it's just different, but don't expect, orange juice and you're peeling an apple.
Well, and it's funny because a lot of the biggest songs from the artists that I've grown up listening to, a lot of the biggest songs were the ones that they hate playing the most.
Correct. There are several artists that are like, I cannot stand this song, but it's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
It's what people want to hear. This song has made me millions of dollars. I'm going to play it for these people.
And I can't stand this song, you
right.
know? And
you get tired of it.
And they get tired of it. And I understand that, from a musician point, but
it's put their kids through college. It's done all the things.
But going back to what's the end goal? Mm-hmm. Because there's something to sacrifice there, right?
Yep.
So
that point, that's the point. And I won't name the musicians because they're local and they're popular. But one guy was like, "Hey man, would you?" And this particular artist, hopefully nobody figures out, became popular because he played with a popular rock artist. And I was like, and he hated the costume that he had to wear with this popular rock artist, like one of the biggest rock artists of all time now, of our generation. And I asked this guy who was always comparing himself to, man, I should be that, I can play better, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, would you wear this on stage with this piece? Like, no way in the world I would do it. I was like, then shut up.
Right.
Because this guy gave up something, maybe time with family, maybe personal time. He gave up his portion of his identity to elevate his career. And now he's living in those sacrifices. You can't judge that person. You cannot, don't compare yourself.
Right.
Stop the foolishness is kind of how I feel about it. So you're right. I just everybody sacrifices somewhere,
100%. 100%. Can't continue to hate on Nickelback.
Correct. You can't because we know Nickelback.
Well, we know Nickelback.
About it. We know Nickelback. Right.
100%. Well, so a question about, because we have the Dolby Atmos room here. Question about the audio for your immersive sound setup. Mm-hmm. Well, how is that done?
So we're just now getting into, We're talking about Atmos as you speak because we have the next showing of it is in Pittsburgh, where it's going to be a week long, not Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, where we're going to do it for like a week long. And it's the first venue that we're doing it in that has, I think, 1.7.
Okay.
So it's like, because there's animation involved, there's sound effects, sound design, we are like trying to figure out how do we get this spaceship flying to like loop around the room and then loop back? How do we get this explosion over here? People screaming over here, all of this stuff. So we are very much so interested in.
Well, we have to mix the project in Dolby to do that.
I think we do.
We got the room next door to do it.
I know you do. I've seen the room.
I know you've seen it. You sat in. You listened to Rocket Man.
Yeah, I did. I listened to Rocket Man. Yep. You're right. Yep. And it was great. So most definitely we need to get in the room and do it. I would love to because as this will be in July, so we have to do it soon because the whole month of June we're prepping and getting ready and talking about specs with that venue and trying to get everything lined up so that we can have another amazing presentation of this show.
Awesome. Well, listen, and I'm going to put myself on camera saying this. So I'm willing to work with you guys in putting that done and getting it done so that we can actually all showcase something that's been done here in New Orleans. It's with the Dolby stuff and the immersive side and a whole new journey of how to create something out of your music. Mm-hmm. I feel like we could make something pretty crazy out of it. So
I'm down.
Let's definitely try to make the link and partner with that.
Say less. We're gonna do that, and that's important. And let me just say, I mean, some people be like, Lou, you did a lot of New Orleans hating on that. No, we could have started this immersive show anywhere in the country, and we've done it now twice here in New Orleans because it's important to me, being born and bred here, that this is birthed out of this city, no matter what.
Right.
And nobody can ever say it's not out of New Orleans. Hell, I'm from New Orleans, so it's New Orleans. That's
right,
how
100%.
So, but no, by having that as well, we want as much stuff done here in this city so that people know that, an Atmos studio is sitting right here in New Orleans, and that work can be done.
Absolutely. Collaboration is the only way we get out of this situation we're in.
Correct.
Because if we all bond together, nobody's going to break us down.
Correct.
So,
100.
But tell me a little bit about the Janelle Monáe show and how all that went, because I heard she opened for you guys.
Oh my goodness. That was a horrible experience. No. So we're living in Atlanta. This is Janelle Janelle was very hot in the AUC, which is the college campus situation, right? She was really hot. She had her style where she was only wearing black and white. She was already signed to Big Boy, but she hadn't worked out her label deal yet. Always had a ton of people go and see her. And she came and she was like, they have a Wednesday wind down, which is in Centennial Park. And so she was, they put us on a show with her. We were supposed to open for her, but at the time we were a pretty big band, horn section and everything like that. And she came up, she's like, no, I don't. She's like, would you guys switch? Can I open for you? I just have my guitar player, me, my manager, and who has a smoke machine. And I was like, I don't really know, but I was like, cool, whatever, we'll do it. And she got up there and she opened it up by saying, hey, look, at this time she'd only had her EP out. And she was like, hey, look, you guys, they say you're not my crowd, but I'm going to do this show anyway. And she did an amazing job. She performed. She did her. Right. She didn't adjust who she was for the people that were there, and this is like a smooth jazz crowd, right. And she didn't adjust. She did her show. She went off. She went crazy. She finished. Back then in the AUC, everybody would wear her little Oxford shoes and stuff. So they were all there and they were at her table buying stuff. So we do our show, band rocking and stuff, doing everything, doing the whole nine, everything, people up dancing, moving and stuff. And after the show, like Janelle Monáe's table was packed after her set. After the show, I'm walking around. CDs were still popular during that time. This was right after Katrina. And I'm asking people, we would walk around and ask people to buy CDs. And there was this older guy, he must have been like in his 70s. Cool brother, real cool, had his hat, chain on and everything, real cool, cane, everything. He's like, yeah, man, yeah, brother, I'm gonna support you, man. How much are they? I'm like, it's like $5, right? Okay, yeah, man, here's like, man, I'm gonna tell you one thing. I enjoyed your music, but see that girl that performed before y'all, she's a star. And that changed everything for me. That one comment just changed because I'm begging people to support me. Right. And she is gravitating people to support me, to support her. Right. And that was one of the major moments where I remember after that show, we were doing gigs, we were doing 6 gigs. We were doing 6 gigs like a week in Atlanta, which is unprecedented. We were doing like one hotel lobby this day, then after hotel lobby, we go straight down to the city and we would do a club. And then Saturday, we were playing a lot. We were making a lot of money, still selling a lot of CDs, but making a lot of money. But the problem was people really weren't coming to support us. They were coming because of the environment. Gotcha. They were coming because they wanted to be in an environment where they were like, hey. Right. They didn't care about the background music. And that's what we were. There'd be a few songs that they could sing. We'd throw in some originals. Maybe there'd be one fan that really loved it, but 1 out of 200 people ain't enough. Right. You know what I'm saying? So we changed everything at that point. We just stopped and we said, we will not do any more of these hotel shows unless it's 100% original music or 90% original music. And we lost a lot of money and we lost a lot of gigs. Yeah, because you don't want to be a wedding band, right? But didn't want that. And we were just realizing that we could be replaced by anybody. One of the clubs we were playing at was one of the hottest clubs in Atlanta on one of the hottest strips during that time. And we held that down. And I remember I made demands and they replaced us. The next band was just like, who cares? Right. The fans, the people that came to the club, like, who cares? But that was that lesson that I needed to learn. It's like, if I'm not building brand, if I'm not building artistry, yes, I'm going to have less now, but I'm going to have more in the future, hopefully. Right. And that's what the result is. So that Janelle Monáe experience taught me a lot about gigging musician. The industry. And an artist. Yeah. And it's 2 different things. And you got to know what you want. If you want to make, now don't get me wrong, we were making a lot of cash. Right. Lots of money in the bank, making a lot of cash. And if that's what you want, continue. Right. Be happy, do that. But if that's not what you want, again, don't expect to be a superstar doing that. Right. When Janelle Monáe's over here doing this,
right,
and she's off doing all kind of things. 100%.
There's a lot of people that get comfortable in the gigging world. I mean, I know there's a guy. I'm not going to say his name because he's a very, very good friend of mine, but and I'm not going to down him or anything, but at the same time, he can play Miami 4 or 5 nights a week by himself, making $1,500 a night, 30 days a month. He can do that consistently and make good money, but he also wants to be a superstar.
Right.
You're not going to do that doing that lifestyle.
Yeah, you're exhausted.
You're exhausted, but you're also replaceable.
Yeah.
You're there for the vibe and the environment. They're not there for you.
Correct.
And that transition is what creates a real artist.
Yeah, and I mean that's what's happening on some of our popular streets in New Orleans. Artists don't realize it's like they're actually not there for you.
Right.
They're enjoying you while they're there.
Right.
But
you're every part of the. You're a vital part of the vibe, but they can replace that part of the vibe
in hours.
Right.
in hours, can be like, can't make it tonight. Okay. Next,
100%
kind of vibe. So,
but that's also life too. You gotta get through that stuff.
Look,
but I'm proud of you for the immersive sound situation and that whole concert series because it's very different. It's original and it can create a real fan base.
Yeah, we've been fortunate in that we've brought in a lot of people who are super comic book fans and gaming fans, to a music space that they normally wouldn't be in.
It's a good blend, though.
Yeah,
it's a good blend.
And we're and it's really fueled. We haven't really pushed an album in 3-4 years. This album we will really work hard on promoting, making it. That Billboard charting album or whatever, we're going to put a lot of effort and energy into it. But just for us to maintain without releasing the new music for real has been, it's been a learning experience, but it's also been a testament to brand building. It helped us see that, okay, the brand is sound.
Absolutely.
We can still demand certain things. We still highly respect it for what we do. And that means a lot to us.
Absolutely. Do you have a release date on the new music?
New music is I'm going to a studio session directly after this. We're trying to do September. We're trying to do September is when we're trying to release.
All right.
So yeah.
All right. Well, good. Well, I hope everybody looks forward to it. I appreciate the conversation today.
Yeah, great combo, man. We got into some good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Let's definitely, I'd love to sit down and talk about the music culture and how we can fix it more and more. So,
hey, problem-based, solution-based is what I'm about. So let's go.
Absolutely. Well, great. Well, thanks. Tell everybody your socials and where we can find Waterseed and the Immersive Show and all that stuff, please.
That's easy. Waterseedmusic.com is the main website. We're most active on Instagram, which is Waterseed Music. If you want to check out the Immersive Show, go to journey2funkstar.com. And if you want to check out the other comic book, Sounds of the Wasteland, that's soundsofthewasteland.com. And that's where we are. And check us out.
Awesome. Well, great, man. Well, thanks for everything you do here in New Orleans. And
thank you, man. Thanks for all the things you do, too.
Absolutely, man. But let's partner up on that Dolby stuff. I'm
with you on it.
I'm real
I'm
on
with
it,
you. I'm serious. I'm calling you.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. And if you like to see more, please like and subscribe to the page. And I'll see you next time.